Hi everyone, here's what's bothering me today. We're not talking enough about Ethiopia and the ramifications that its current political crisis could have on the world at large. Now, here's how that all works, and I know a lot of people are talking about France. I might do that tomorrow or perhaps even later today if I have time. But here's why Ethiopia is incredibly important. So, Ethiopia is the second most populous country after Nigeria. And the way Ethiopia is politically organized is basically into a bunch of federated autonomous regions that are ostensibly for and run by the various local native groups. So, the Tigray region is run by the Tigrayan peoples, the Oromo region is run by the Oromo, but they all ostensibly participate in the same electoral democracy. Now, it's the former ones, the Tigrayans, that we're going to talk about, because right now there's a crisis unfolding there. And there's really a lot to cover, so let me just briefly sum up. Basically, for the past, I think, 3 decades or so, Tigrayan peoples have basically dominated Ethiopia's political landscape. Now, the new president is from the Oromo tribe, or the Oromo ethnic nation. And he has tried to pursue reforms, some of which have been successful, some which have not. However, the Tigrayans also feel that since losing power, they have been unfairly targeted in a number of anti-corruption drives, being blamed for a lot of the problems of the past. So there's some tensions there. Things got worse when the coronavirus pandemic hit, because what ended up happening was that there was supposed to be an election, but the current president said, in the interest of public safety, we're going to delay the election until we get a handle on this pandemic. The Tigrayan region decided to host their own election anyway, which the current president declared invalid. The Tigrayans said, well, no, it's not. And then things were very tense until an army base was under attack. At least this is what the official government of Ethiopia claims and says. And so that has then sparked a conflict, like basically an internal regional civil war of sorts, with the Tigray region against the official government of Ethiopia. So there's that background as to like these regions and why they're a little mad and upset. Maybe they're mad at losing power. Maybe they are just really feeling the pinch from unfair corruption targeting. I really don't know enough about that situation to comment further. What I do know is that this whole situation could not only destabilize the Horn of Africa, but the world in general. And here's the reason why. So Ethiopia has long been a major supporter of UN missions, especially in the Horn of Africa. A lot of Ethiopian peacekeepers and troops have been in Somalia. They've also hosted various refugees from Eritrea, Sudan, South Sudan. So this is a nation that in that area has kind of been very crucial to regional stability. Ethiopia also relies heavily on its imports and exports because it is a landlocked nation. It relies on nations like Djibouti and Somalia for their ports. And this is where things start to reach a broader regional area. While that's their sort of economic access to the east and to the north, they are also home to the headwaters of the Nile, and they are building, well, one of the Niles, and they are building a massive dam, which is why they've been in talks with Egypt and Sudan over the years about water management, because they all rely on that same vital water source in this dry, arid area. So if Ethiopia is destabilized into another broader and bloody civil war, which has happened in the past, unfortunately, if that happens, it destabilizes the economies of all of the Horn of Africa. It also negatively impacts the people who live along the Nile, so in South Sudan, Sudan, and Egypt. This impacts an already strained food crisis, not just because of the pandemic, but because of climate change and increasing food stressors. It means that hundreds of thousands of refugees who are in Ethiopia now have to flee elsewhere, and there aren't really many places to go outside of Ethiopia. Like, there's Kenya and Uganda maybe to the south. And so this could be teetering on the brink of not only a broad humanitarian crisis in terms of food and displaced people, but also in terms of the social and ecological impact it could have on what are considered major players in the Arab world, Egypt and Sudan, especially Egypt, which has a lot of people. They crucially rely on the Nile. They're currently led by the authoritarian military regime of al-Sisi. And so if Egypt is yet another, major partner in the hopes for Middle Eastern stability, if they go, and if Sudan also goes, and if you have this line all along, the eastern half of Africa that is ultimately destabilized because of food, the virus, water usage, and a refugee crisis, that negatively impacts the Middle East, which in turn impacts the world's global economy, because we all decided it was a good idea to really pay attention to the stock market, even though not everyone uses oil from some of these nations. So because of that and this globalized marketplace, what could happen is a renewed humanitarian crisis that would put the current ongoing Yemen humanitarian crisis to shame, and it would also destabilize potentially and cause disruptions, very serious disruptions, in nations all the way from Egypt to Somalia. This is not a good recipe for anyone during any good times, and it's even worse during a pandemic. And so the fact that more people aren't paying attention to the importance of ongoing internal affairs in Ethiopia and the broader implications it can have on the rest of the world is definitely what's bothering me today.